Did you hear that? Let me out.
My parents bought the house in the spring. I remember the day we first saw it, a Sunday in late April, the kind of perfect weather that makes everything seem possible. The realtor kept using words like charming and vintage and full of potential, which I would later understand was code for structurally questionable and possibly haunted. It was cheap, too cheap for a two-story house in a decent neighborhood. My mom had hesitated, standing on the creaky front porch with her arms crossed, staring up at the peeling paint and warped shutters. But my dad, practical, optimistic, endlessly convinced he could fix anything with enough YouTube tutorials and hardware store trips, just smiled and said, "Old houses have character." He was right about that, at least. We moved in on a Sunday. By Monday, I already hated it. The house felt wrong from the moment we started unpacking. Not wrong in any way I could articulate, just wrong. The kind of wrongness you feel in your gut, the kind that makes the hair on your arms stand up for no reason you can name. Boxes filled the living room, stacked in towers that cast strange shadows as the afternoon light filtered through dirty windows. And the sounds. God, the sounds. Footsteps echoed strangely when you walked across the hardwood floors, like there was hollow space beneath them. Like the house was mostly empty air held together by old wood and wishful thinking. Doors creaked when no one touched them. The pipes groaned and shuddered at random hours. Every settling creak, every whisper of wind through loose window panes seemed amplified, distorted, transformed into something almost organic. But it was that first night that really got to me. I was lying in my new bedroom, boxes still unpacked, mattress on the floor, because we hadn't assembled the bed frame yet, staring at the ceiling and trying to convince myself this place would eventually feel like home. The house was finally quiet. My parents were asleep down the hall. The neighborhood was silent except for the occasional car passing on the street outside. Then I heard it. Soft banging. Rhythmic. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more knocks. Like someone tapping on wood from the wrong side. It was coming from below me, from somewhere underneath the floorboards. I sat up, my heart already racing, straining to hear over my own breathing. The knocking continued. Patient, persistent, deliberate. I crept down the hallway to my parents' room and woke my dad. He followed me back, groggy and irritated, listening with his head tilted toward the floor. "It's just the pipes," he said after a moment, yawning. "Old houses, remember? Everything makes noise. You'll get used to it, but pipes don't sound like knocking. And pipes definitely don't whisper your name." I heard it as he walked back to his room, so faint I almost convinced myself it was my imagination. My name, stretched out into a breath, coming from somewhere below. Olivia. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, while helping my mom unpack kitchen boxes, I found it. We were clearing out the back hallway, a narrow space that connected the kitchen to what would eventually become my dad's office. There was a heavy wooden shelf against one wall, loaded with paint cans and old tools left by the previous owners. My mom asked me to move it so we could assess the wall behind it for water damage. I grabbed one end and pulled. The shelf scraped across the floor with a sound like a scream, revealing the wall behind it. Except it wasn't just a wall. There was a door. Someone had tried to hide it, covered it with old wallpaper that didn't match the rest of the hallway, positioned the shelf to block it completely. But it was unmistakably a door, wooden, old, with a rusted padlock holding it shut. "Mom," my voice came out smaller than I intended. "Did the realtor mention a basement?" She came over, frowning at the door like it had personally offended her. "No," they definitely said no basement. That was one of the selling points. Less maintenance, no flooding risk. But here it was, a door that shouldn't exist, locked with a padlock that looked decades old, the metal flaking with rust. And as we stood there staring at it, I heard something. Scratching. Soft, deliberate scratching like fingernails on wood coming from the other side. My mom heard it too. I could tell by the way her expression changed, the way she stepped back instinctively. But she recovered quickly, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Probably mice," she said. "Or rats. Old houses, you know. Your dad will deal with it." When my dad came home that evening, he examined the door with his hands on his hips, flashlight beam tracing the padlock and hinges. "It was probably sealed for safety," he said, his voice taking on that confident, everything's fine tone adults use when they're not entirely sure everything is fine. Old wiring, maybe structural issues. Previous owners just sealed it off instead of dealing with it. "Happens all the time. Shouldn't we open it?" I asked. "Make sure there's nothing wrong down there." "Eventually," he said, "but not tonight. I need to get the right tools. Maybe call someone who knows about old houses. Don't worry about it." But that night, when everyone was asleep and the house had settled into its usual symphony of creaks and groans, I heard something new. Crying. It started around midnight, soft, muffled sobs that seemed to seep up through the floorboards. I lay rigid in my bed, eyes wide in the darkness, listening to the sound of a child crying somewhere below me. A girl's voice. She cried for what felt like hours, the sound rising and falling in waves of grief that made my chest ache. And just before I finally drifted into an exhausted sleep, the crying shifted into words. Words I couldn't quite make out, but words nonetheless. Someone was down there. Someone was trapped. I couldn't sleep the next night either. The crying had stopped, but something worse had replaced it. Whispering. Not the muffled, distant kind that you could dismiss as pipes or wind or imagination. This was clear, crisp, like someone was speaking directly into my ear. It started around 2 a.m. I've been lying awake, staring at my phone, scrolling mindlessly through social media, and trying not to think about the door in the hallway below me. Then I heard it, cutting through the silence like a knife. "Please." I froze, my thumb stopped mid-scroll. The phone screen glowed in the darkness, casting blue light across my face. "Please, let me out." The voice was young, a girl, maybe my age or younger. It wasn't coming from below me anymore. It was coming from under my bed. My entire body locked up. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't even scream. Every horror movie I'd ever seen flashed through my mind. All the scenes where someone looks under the bed, where something reaches out, where everything goes wrong. The whisper came again, a little louder this time, tinged with desperation. "Please. I've been here so long. Please let me out." The temperature in my room dropped. I could see my breath suddenly, white puffs in the glow of my phone screen. The cold was unnatural, aggressive, the kind of cold that comes from open freezers and winter mornings, not from a bedroom in late spring. I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to bolt for the door, to get out of that room, to get out of that house. But I was paralyzed, my muscles refusing to obey, my body betraying me when I needed it most. The whispering stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse. I stayed frozen until dawn, until the first light filtered through my curtains and the temperature slowly returned to normal. Only then did I move, rolling out of bed so fast I nearly fell, putting as much distance between myself and that space beneath the mattress as possible. In the hallway, I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. Muddy footprints. Small ones, like they'd been made by bare feet, leading from the basement door to the stairs. The mud was dark, almost black, and it had a strange texture, not like regular dirt, but something thicker, more organic. The prints led up the stairs, down the hallway, and stopped outside my bedroom door. I couldn't tell my parents. What would I say? That I was hearing voices? That there were mysterious footprints that would probably be gone by the time they looked? They'd think I was losing it, that the stress of moving had pushed me over some edge. So instead, I decided to investigate. The attic was accessible through a pull-down ladder in the hallway ceiling. My mom had mentioned storing extra blankets up there, so I had an excuse to go searching. I climbed up into the dusty heat, my phone flashlight cutting through the gloom. The attic was full of forgotten things. Old furniture covered in sheets, boxes of Christmas decorations, stacks of yellowed newspapers. And photos. So many photos. I found them in a cardboard box near the back, under a moth-eaten blanket. Pictures of families who'd lived here before us, their smiles frozen in time, their lives captured in fading Polaroids and curling prints. I sifted through them, looking for, I don't know what I was looking for. Some clue, some explanation for the voice and the footprints and the terrible wrongness that permeated this house. Then I found her, a little girl, maybe 11 or 12, standing in the hallway I just walked through. Same wallpaper, same light fixture, same narrow space that felt like it was closing in on you. She was pale, almost ethereally so, wearing a white dress that seemed too formal, too old-fashioned. Her expression was serious, her eyes dark, and somehow sad. I flipped the photo over. Written in faded blue ink, Rebecca, 1987. My hands were shaking as I carried the photo downstairs. I found my dad in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reviewing contractor estimates for various repairs the house needed. "Dad," my voice cracked. "Who is this?" He looked at the photo, and I watched his face change. The color drained from his cheeks. His jaw tightened. "Where did you find that?" The question came out sharper than I think he intended. "In the attic." "Who is she?" He set down his coffee mug, and when he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "That's Rebecca. She was the daughter of the family who owned the house before the people we bought from. Before the people before them. Actually, this house has been through a lot of owners." "What happened to her?" The silence stretched too long. "She went missing," he finally said, "in 1987. They never found her." The words hung in the air between us. I felt my stomach drop, my skin prickling with the certainty that I already knew where she was. My dad reached over and took the photo from my hand, his grip gentle but firm. "Forget about it, Olivia. It's a sad story, but it has nothing to do with us. These things happen. People move on." He slid the photo into his back pocket. "Don't go digging around in the attic anymore. There's probably asbestos up there, and God knows what else." But I couldn't forget about it, because that night, I heard her crying again. And I knew she was in that basement. I waited until 2 a.m., until the house was silent and my parents were definitely asleep. Then I crept downstairs, a hammer clutched in my sweating hand, my phone flashlight illuminating the narrow hallway. The basement door looked different in the darkness, more menacing. The rusted padlock seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. I raised the hammer. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to stop, to go back to bed, to let my dad handle this in the morning. But I couldn't. The crying had been so real, so desperate. If there was any chance at all, that someone needed help. The hammer came down. The padlock shattered on the second strike, pieces of rusted metal scattering across the floor with small, tinny sounds. The door swung open on its own. The smell hit me first, old dust, and something else, something organic and rotten that made my stomach heave. The air that wafted up from below was wrong, colder than it should be, thick with moisture and decay. I pointed my phone light down the stairs. They were narrow, the wooden steps warped and splitting, descending into absolute darkness. The walls on either side were concrete, old and crumbling, with dark stains that I tried not to think about too carefully. "Hello." My voice came out as a whisper. "Rebecca." No answer. I started down the stairs, each step creaking under my weight, the sound impossibly loud in the suffocating silence. The temperature dropped with each step until I could see my breath again, until my fingers were numb around the phone. At the bottom, my light revealed a small room. It was maybe 10 feet by 10 feet with a low ceiling and concrete walls. In the center sat a small wooden chair, its wood dark with age and something that might have been water damage. Next to it lay a rag doll, its fabric body moldy and falling apart, button eyes hanging by threads. And on the floor, attached to the wall by a rusted metal loop, was a broken chain. The crying had stopped. The basement was silent except for my ragged breathing and the frantic hammering of my heart. Then I saw the walls. Scratch marks. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, covering every inch of concrete within reach of where that chair sat. They were deep, desperate, the kind of marks that could only come from fingernails scraping and scraping and scraping, day after day, year after year, and carved into the concrete, in letters that must have taken hours to scratch out. Still here, my phone light flickered. Once. Twice. Then it went out. I bolted for the stairs in absolute darkness, my hands scraping against the walls, my shin cracking against the bottom step hard enough to send lightning bolts of pain up my leg. I scrambled up those stairs like something was chasing me, like the dark itself had teeth. I exploded out of the basement into the hallway, gasping, shaking, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. The hallway light was on. I was sure I'd left it off, casting everything in harsh yellow light that seemed almost accusatory. I slammed the basement door shut and ran upstairs, back to my room, throwing myself into bed and pulling the covers over my head like I was 6 years old again, like blankets could protect me for what I'd seen. But sleep wouldn't come, because I kept thinking about that chain, about the scratch marks, about a little girl who'd been locked in that basement in 1987, who'd disappeared and never been found, whose body was never recovered. She'd been there all along. For 38 years, Rebecca had been in that basement, and I just opened her door. I woke up to the sound of footsteps. Not the hollow footsteps from below, not the pipes settling or the house creaking. These were real footsteps, soft and deliberate, moving across my bedroom floor. I opened my eyes in the darkness and saw her. A faint silhouette standing near my closet, barely visible in the thin moonlight filtering through my curtains. She was small, child-sized, wearing something pale that might have been white once, but now looked gray and water-stained. The white dress from the photo. My breath caught in my throat. I tried to scream, tried to move, tried to do anything, but my body wouldn't respond. I was frozen, watching as the silhouette moved closer, gliding rather than walking, leaving wet footprints on my carpet. She came to stand beside my bed, and as my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could make out details I wished I couldn't see. Her face was pale, almost translucent, with dark hollows where her eyes should have been. Water dripped from her hair, from her dress, pooling on the floor with soft, rhythmic plops. Her mouth opened, and when she spoke, her voice was the same one I'd heard whispering, but colder now, emptier. "You found me." She leaned closer, and I could smell her, earth and mold and stagnant water, the smell of things that should be buried. "Now you can't leave." She moved closer still, her face inches from mine, her hollow eyes fixed on me with an intensity that felt like physical pressure. I wanted to scream, needed to scream, but my voice was locked somewhere in my chest, trapped by terror so complete it had paralyzed everything. Her hand reached out, cold, wet, impossibly cold, and touched my forehead. Then everything went dark. My parents found me in the hallway the next morning. I was lying at the top of the stairs, unconscious, my skin ice cold, my lips tinged blue. I don't remember how I got there. I don't remember anything after Rebecca touched me, just darkness and the sound of crying and the feeling of being underwater, unable to breathe, unable to surface. They said I was unconscious for 6 hours. The basement door was wide open when they found me, and the smell, that awful smell of rotten decay, had spread through the entire first floor. My dad called the police, told them he'd found a hidden basement with what looked like evidence of something. Something terrible. I don't know what the police found down there. My parents wouldn't tell me, kept saying I didn't need to know, that I should focus on recovering. But I saw the way the officers looked at my dad when they came out. I saw them seal the basement door with police tape, saw them taking pictures, saw the grim set of their jaws. The next week, my parents put the house on the market. We moved out before it even sold, rented an apartment across town, left everything behind except the essentials. My mom couldn't look at that house anymore. My dad stopped making jokes about character. I looked her up online as soon as I had the chance. Rebecca Morrison, age 12, disappeared from her home on October 15, 1987. Her parents had reported her missing when she didn't come home from school. The police investigation found no evidence of foul play, no signs of struggle, no leads whatsoever. She simply vanished. Her body was never found. The house had sold 3 times since the disappearance. Each family stayed less than 2 years before moving out, citing various reasons. Structural issues, financial problems just didn't feel right. The house sat empty for long stretches between owners. No one ever thought to break open that basement door. No one except me. We've been in the new apartment for 6 months now. It's small, cramped, nothing like the space we had in the house. But it's bright and new, and it doesn't make any sounds it shouldn't. I should feel safe here. But sometimes, late at night, when the city outside has gone quiet and I'm lying in my bed trying to sleep, I hear it. Whispering. Soft and persistent, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. You let me out. You let me out, and now I can find you. I tell myself it's my imagination. Trauma. PTSD from what I experienced in that house. The therapist my parents sent me to says the brain can play tricks after traumatic events, that I'm processing everything I went through. But the therapist can't explain the wet footprints I sometimes find beside my bed in the morning. She can't explain why my breath sometimes fogs in my room on warm summer nights. And she definitely can't explain the photo I found slipped under my door last week. The one from the attic, the one my dad took from me, showing Rebecca in that hallway. Except now, in the photo, she's smiling. And there's someone standing behind her. Someone who looks exactly like me. If this story made you check in your bed tonight, smash that like button and subscribe to STF Horror Vault for more chilling true tales from the dark. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a nightmare. And drop a comment below telling us, have you ever found something in your house that should have stayed hidden? Some doors are locked for a reason. Some secrets are buried for our protection. And some things, once released, can never be contained again. Until next time, keep your basements locked and your lights on. This is STF Horror Vault, reminding you that the past never really stays buried. Sweet dreams, if you can still have them.